Hey gang, welcome to Mzansi and USA News. Well, what can we say to these things? Dr. John Hlophe is on the news once again for a seat on the JSC. Let's delve in.
The buzzwords during this debate: fit and proper. Hlophe was found guilty of misconduct by the JSC and Parliament voted on his impeachment last year. The question now is whether he should serve on the commission as nominated by his party.
The attempt to erode the will of the people by dictating to the MKP which of its preferred candidates are to be designated to the JSC is constitutionally repulsive.
They were supported by a few other parties.
Let's respect the fact that a certain number of people in South Africa have voted for Umkhonto as a party and have designated Dr. Hlophe to become a member of parliament.
There is nothing that precludes Dr. John Hlophe from representing Parliament. The National Assembly has always followed the principle of allowing parties to decide.
The streets have spoken. They want the Honorable Sheikh Hlophe to serve on that commission. The people shall govern. This is a people's parliament. Al-Jamaa supports the nomination.
The DA was the first to register its objection.
Applicants to be interviewed by the Judicial Services Commission going forward will object and apply for the recusal of Dr. Hlophe on the basis the finding of gross misconduct renders him unfit to serve on a body that is determined to fitness, that is to determine the fitness and the propriety of others.
Dr. Hlophe is also the first judge to have been removed from office. And that cannot be ignored. That cannot be ignored.
I hold the view that as Build One South Africa, we stood up and we said we want a particular level of leadership and we need to be able to endorse that view. Therefore, we cannot support the decision.
Our view as the ANC is that notwithstanding the concern that has been raised by the DA on the Hlophe matter, we want to suggest that the House should not take a position unless it has clarified its own rules where there's a lacuna or there's a gap on our rules, as well as the Constitution, so that when we take a position, it does not just become a political position.
Other MPs seconded to the JSC are ANC MP Mulapi Lekhanyane, ANC MP Fatima Hassan, DA MP Advocate Glenys Breitenbach, EFF leader Julius Malema, and Action SA MP Ethel Trollip.
Okay, so now that you guys have heard that, my question to you is, what do you think about Justice, or rather Dr. Hlophe, being a member of Parliament? Not just a member of Parliament, as a matter of fact, a member of the JSC. Remember, he's already a member of Parliament. So what do you think? What are your views concerning him being a member of the JSC? Now, I'm just going to show you something here. The members that stood up in Parliament to say Justice Hlophe is a member of Parliament and therefore is entitled to become a member of JSC are 100% correct. So are the members who are opposing. So are the members who are opposing his election to that committee. They are also ethically 100% correct. So their objection is valid. However, their objection is not constitutional. And this, for me, creates a dilemma. As a matter of fact, this has always been my problem with our laws, that they seem to lack the moral fiber and the ethics. I've read laws like what we call the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Employment Equity Act. I've looked at the Constitution in its entirety. I've looked at the Domestic Violence Act. There's a lot in these laws that when you assess them, you see a lot of veiled malevolence that if they were to be implemented to the nth degree, nobody who is a self-respecting citizen, who is a citizen in a good standing with moral fiber, would be happy. I can give you multiple examples, but I don't want to deviate. Perhaps at some point in time, I should just simply do a video that buttresses the point I'm making here. Suffice to say, I will buttress this point by showing you the Constitution. The Constitution is not silent on this issue. I've heard people talk about Section 165 of the Constitution. I don't believe that's a relevant section to deal with this matter. The relevant section to deal with this matter is Section 47 of the Constitution, the very one that Jacob Zuma was contesting, because that's the section of the Constitution that specifically tells you who is eligible to be a member of Parliament. So let's get to it. So here is Section 47. It talks about membership. Every citizen who is qualified to vote for the National Assembly is eligible to be a member of the Assembly, except everybody who is a South African who is qualified to vote is also qualified to be the member of the National Assembly, except anyone who's appointed by or is in service of the state and receive remuneration for that appointment or service other than the president, deputy president, ministers and deputy ministers and other office bearers whose functions are compatible with the functions of a member of the assembly and have been declared compatible with those functions by national legislation. So this is pretty clear. You can't have a director general of a particular department working as an MP in parliament. That's basically the story there. Then except permanent delegates to the National Council of Provinces or members of provincial legislature or a municipal council. So once again, you can't be a member of the provincial legislature or a municipal council and then still be a member of what we call the National Assembly. That's basically the point here. Unrehabilitated insolvents. So you have declared insolvency and you are still under curatorship, which is a process that takes about 10 years for you to be rehabilitated. Observe, it doesn't say insolvents. It says unrehabilitated insolvents. And this is very key. Otherwise, you would ask a question, does it mean to be insolvent is worse than being a murderer? Because we have, or a robber. We have people in parliament who have served sentences who are now no longer, who qualify. They are no longer in prison. 5 years has since lapsed since their last serving of the sentence, and they are entitled to become members of parliament. Permanent, okay, I read that. Anyone declared to be of unsound mind by a court of the republic, meaning you are on what I call crazy tablets. You are not mentally balanced. There is something wrong here in your head. You are suffering from some sort of a psychosis. Now E, anyone who after this section took effect is convicted of an offense and sentenced to more than 12 months imprisonment without option of a fine either in the republic or outside the republic, if the conduct constituting the offense would have been an offense in the republic. But no one may be regarded as having sentenced until an appeal against the conviction or sentence has been determined or until the time of an appeal has expired. A disqualification under this paragraph ends 5 years after the sentence has been completed. So this is what Zuma had taken to court. A person who is not eligible to be a member of the National Assembly in terms of subsections 1A or B may be a candidate for the Assembly subject to any limits or conditions established by the national legislation. A person who loses membership of National Assembly if that person ceases to be eligible or is absent from the Assembly without permission in the circumstances for which the rules and orders of the Assembly prescribe loss of membership, or ceases to be a member of the party that nominated that person as a member of the Assembly. Can you see that? Vacancies in the National Assembly must be filled in terms of the national legislation. So this is the section of the law, in my view, that needs to be fixed. That because if you observe here, currently as it stands, it deals with who qualifies to be a member of the National Assembly. And it doesn't say former judges cannot be members of the National Assembly. So that means even Mukhweng can be a member of the National Assembly. Can you see that? It doesn't say former judges cannot be members of the National Assembly. Former judges who were impeached cannot be members of the National Assembly. Can you see that? But as a matter of fact, by the fact that Hlophe is a member of the National Assembly, he therefore qualifies to be a member of any committee of the National Assembly. Can you see that? Now, we obviously can't read the law to suit a particular narrative that we want to push. Now, hence I said those who stood up, like the ATM, the Shivambus, the ANC, they all, as a matter of fact, the ANC, for me, the way they put their case is like, we observe the objection by the DA, but they then talk about a lacuna, the gap that exists in the laws and the policies of the National Assembly, which is true, but this is the law that needs fixing. So what they now need to do is to form a 2/3 majority and pass a law that the president will sign that will fix this membership. However, such a law, obviously an exception is going to have to be made here because laws cannot be applied retrospectively as far as I know. Morally and ethically, of course, it is repugnant that Hlophe should become a member of the JSC. However, I wouldn't vote for Hlophe not to be a member of the JSC if I was a member of the National Assembly. For a simple reason, I've just showed you why he is supposed to be a member of the JSC. He is a member. There's nothing that disqualifies him to be a member of the National Assembly. The Constitution is a supreme law, and that's what I want to show to you right now. And this is where, remember I said to you, some of our law, when you read it, when you read it, you can get an impression that it doesn't support morality or good ethics. Now, I want you to see what the supremacy of our Constitution talks about. Can you see what's in your screen right now? The Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Law or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid, and the obligations imposed by it must be fulfilled. This is why the motion of the DA will fail in this regard, because they are using morals. They are not using the Constitution there is no clause of the Constitution to say Hlophe cannot be a member of the JSC. For me, it's a fight that they should have stayed out of. And because I have no dog in that fight, it's not my job to defend any political party because, as I have said before, I am a political party membership. I am not necessarily pro people becoming members of political parties because you become less objective. In fact, your attention is diluted. You see things through the lenses of the political party. But I think that the ANC was mischievous in voting for Hlophe to be member there because the ANC was part of the committee that found Hlophe to have been grossly misconducted himself. I think it is just nothing but hypocrisy for them to have voted for that. I've heard Mbalula saying something slightly different where he said, if there were to be a vote on this issue in Parliament, the ANC will vote against Hlophe becoming a member of the JSC. As a matter of fact, let me show you that.
Madlayise John Hlophe, you voted in the ANC in support for him to be part of the Judicial Services Commission, yet you're the very same party in the last Parliament that voted for his impeachment. Double standards?
I wouldn't say that those are double standards. With regard to Judge Hlophe, the ANC holds no brief for Hlophe, Dr. Hlophe, first and foremost, and or any member of any other party. And the discontent about John Hlophe's nomination is valid. And the ANC position on the JSC discussion in the House was not to say there is no basis. There is no basis for concern. If we were to vote, we will vote for him to go out, but there was no vote and there was no division. What our chief whip said in word was to say that the rules in terms of eligibility of a member to stand are moot when it comes to an individual who's impeached. And that is why we talk about Section 47. That must then be looked at in terms of addressing that question, because where the rules are now are simply addressing the insolvency of an individual. But it doesn't say that if you are somewhere, you have exercised this particular part, you have played this part, and therefore you cannot be part on this other side. So it is on the shoulders of the parliamentarians themselves and the GNU partners to rectify this thing, and not to stand out and not do something about it. It will be an indictment if this were to be allowed. A man or a woman who was a judge and impeached and found to be on the wrong, he must now sit in a panel and judge others and question them. It is morally bankrupt and incorrect. Must be corrected by the same parliament. So our chief whip, in word, like I said, raised the issue that when it comes to impeachment, it is moot. He did not say that we agree that Hlophe must be in the bench. That will be incorrect because we discussed that with them in Parliament. I had a discussion with them, and then I said that for us it's very clear that we were part of the parties that impeached Hlophe. We can never then be the first ones who agree that it is right for him to serve.
So then what do you then do?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Did you guys pick up that first and foremost, he spoke about some of the issues that I've touched on, like the Section 47. But what I find rather interesting about his input, one, is quite mature coming from him. Either Fikile is growing up, is maturing, or someone has spoken sense to him, because just now Fikile just made a lot of sense. Effectively disagreeing with the chief whip by clearly indicating that I spoke to them, because remember, the political parties in parliament supported this position, and the ANC did not readily say we stand with the DA in parliament. Instead, they simply pointed out that they note the DA's objection. However, there is a lacuna, which is a gap in the laws. Can you see that? But what Mbalula is saying, yeah, sure, we recognize the lacuna. Nevertheless, we are the very people who voted this man out. And he says it will be morally reprehensible. Wow, coming out of a member of the African National Congress. Very, very, I think we're going to have a very interesting 5 years. What do you guys think? You've heard my views are. My views are there is no law barring Hlophe from doing that, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Law or conduct. When we talk about ethics, we talk about a conduct. Okay, if we act ethically, that is a conduct according to the Constitution. Contrary to the Constitution, shall be null and void. Hence, I think, as valid as the DA's objection is, it will fall by reason of the very Constitution. Are you following what I'm saying? Hence, I think this is a war they ought not to be fighting. It is not necessary. It is understandable, however, why it's rising. Make no mistake about it. And here is the other issue that someone else may want to raise. That Hlophe is not the only one that will have a say about judges who is morally bankrupt. What about the president? The president was found to have a prima facie case to respond, to answer to. The Section 89 report was suppressed by the ruling party in parliament. You get the point? Nevertheless, it's just one of the things you can consider to say, but wait a minute, Mandla Hlophe is one out of 23 members of the JSC. The DA is really amplifying a risk that is completely non-existent, because he is not going to be the deciding factor of anything out of 23 members by himself. Just allow the man to be there, okay? Do not be a bully. Just allow him. Sure, we don't agree ethically. However, you're not going to be able to correct everybody's ethics in any case. This is just my posture in life. I would tell you what I perceive to be right or at least as far as I can see it, that I don't think it is okay to do APC. I don't think it's okay for you to stand on the road and be urinating or whatever the case may be. But if you still insist, I'm not going to have a fight with you on that matter. I'm going to walk away. I expect the police and the municipality to enforce the bylaws to ensure that such things, when they see them, which represents public indecency, they would deal with them. Are you following me? So the DA should not have expected anything better from a political party that seeks to mess up with our constitution, rather than bringing someone who already has been discredited from one of the institutions of our constitution into that environment, right? Now, you can look at it that way, but MK, in my view, in this case, has a valid point. Let's disregard the fact that we know their intentions and they've been spelled out. Let's look at the fact that, and that is why the DA needs to really be careful, including the ANC, as to what political fights you are fighting against these people. Very, very, very important. You need to choose your battles here. Otherwise, you'll grow MK like an edifice. And we don't want MK's growth. We want MK to be depleted. Why? They are unconstitutionalists. They will take us to the Stone Age. We don't need that. Okay? So in this case, MK has a point. Hlophe belongs there. He was elected. Therefore, he can be a member of the JSC. It is an era of parliament, and the parliamentarians who have been there for so long that they never saw a need to write that into law. Nevertheless, in case law, there are always precedences. This is one such precedence. As much as Hlophe is a precedence, it's a lesson for them to learn from, to change Section 67, but there is no law that they can use to ensure Hlophe doesn't go there. The nice thing about all of this is that the president has to decide whether or not, if my memory serves me well, has to decide on each member of the JSC that is going to be presented to him, voted by members of parliament. I stand to be corrected on this. And if that is the case, that's the only way Mandlakaise Hlophe can be removed from that. But the president may have to give reasons as to why that is the case. I stand to be corrected as far as that is concerned. But either way, I don't see the lawful standing of the president from removing him. Okay, he will also be acting unconstitutional if you were to remove him. So simply put, yes, the objection for me, from the ethics, from the moral point of view, is a valid objection, as even a person like Fikile Mbalula can see it. However, is it legal? No, it's not. There's no legal requirement for Hlophe to be removed. And this is the whole essence of my argument concerning our regulatory framework, that most of our laws are completely morally bankrupt. Okay? And we, as normal citizens, have to make do with them. We have to deal with them daily. People are being abused to the nth degree because the MECs, the ministers, the HODs, the accounting officers are acting according to the law. Nevertheless, let me love you and leave you. Your opinion is important to me. You can put it down below. Okay. Ciao, ciao. Bye.